Boyfriend and I have been together 4 years, living together for 2.5. I think it's relevant to note that even though this house was purchased for us to live in together, my boyfriend makes most of the money between us. Think 80-20. He makes over $100,000 and therefore was the only reason we were able to afford this house to begin with. So, legally, technically, it is his house. However, he always tells me it's our house. As things have started to go wrong in the house, I've found that I instinctively always immediately say, let's call someone and get them out here to look at it or fix it. Whereas my boyfriend always denies me and says that that's a waste of money and he can do it himself. To his credit, there were things he did fix or resolve by himself that didn't require a professional to come out. And that's great. Side note, like I said, I don't make much, so I literally can't afford to be helping too much with repairs. I do still contribute though, which is why I ask him if we can call an expert. And when he says no, I respect it because it's his money and technically his house. But I've started to realize every time I tell him to call someone else, he says no. Some recent examples I can think of. We had a wasp nest on our roof, and wasps were somehow getting inside and ending up everywhere. In the kitchen windows, both bathrooms, our bedroom, and the basement sliding door area. He vehemently denied me, saying we should get an exterminator to take care of it. I told him that for his safety, he shouldn't be going up on the roof on his own to spray the wasp's nest and to just let me call someone. Still no. He went up there multiple times, and after 2 weeks, the wasps were still coming in. What he was doing wasn't working. I pleaded with him to let me call an exterminator. He went on for another unspecified amount of weeks, spraying and doing whatever else until finally they stopped, which I suspect was because winter had come and they'd finally retreated or died. Regardless, the problem was fixed, I guess. Another example, I noticed he hasn't been very on top of keeping the grass cut. We have a lot of yard and only one small electric lawnmower whose battery doesn't last long enough to cut the whole yard. I brought up that I noticed he was taking longer than usual between cuttings and sometimes only doing 1/4 or 2/4 of our yard and then stopping for a week to then do the other halves a few days or 1 week later, resulting in mismatched grass length and tons of excess grass littering the yard after being cut after so long. I asked him if it would help if we got a better, bigger lawnmower. He said no, he wasn't spending the money. I asked him if it would help if we hired someone to cut the grass for us on a schedule. He said no, he wasn't spending the money. I asked him if we could call someone just this once to come out and cut it all, give us a clean slate, and he could start over and stay on top of it afterward. He said no, he wasn't spending the money, and also that he liked cutting the grass. It was good for him physically, etc. I said okay. Not my money, not my decision ultimately. Most recent example. We live on a well, and randomly, 3 days ago, our water pressure got lower. Not detrimentally low, but noticeably lower. Maybe 10 to 20%. It isn't impacting anything in our house, but I thought, just to be safe, let's call someone and see what's going on. He says no, of course. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, he said, and that it's likely from a drought in our area and it'll probably go back to normal once it rains. I said we should call someone anyway because what if you're wrong and it's something else? We argued, but the answer is still no. He's not calling anyone out to look at it because he doesn't want to spend the money. I'm a bit confused here internally because I'm not sure I really have anything to be upset about. Like I said, his money paid for this house. We are not married. It's not ours. I don't have any authority. But as a partner, and as someone he says he's going to marry soon, I feel a bit disrespected as I notice this emerging trend of constant denials. Am I out of line for expecting some sort of compromise here with any future house issues? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Are you on the deed? If you are, then there's no technically here. It is not your house. It's not your money. You shouldn't invest your money into repairing someone else's house, and need to know that any money you give him is rent, not a share of the mortgage. It's really important to understand the financial situation because if anything goes south, it's not going to be our house, it's going to be his house. Marriage isn't just a piece of paper in these situations. It's the difference between his house and his money and our money. This conflict is happening because you're thinking of it as your shared house and your shared money, which is reasonable when you've been living with someone for 2.5 years. But it isn't, and he doesn't view it that way, regardless of what he says. Comment 2. None of these issues are beyond the skill level or knowledge of a normal homeowner. It's reasonable for any homeowner to want to handle all of these issues on their own. Calling a professional is very expensive and is becoming increasingly expensive every year. The new trend is to do as much as you can and bring in a professional for things that are very much out of your skill range. For example, structural changes, working at heights, very skilled or detailed work, large-scale construction, plumbing, electrical work, or work that requires heavy machinery. If you want to involve a professional, you should be prepared to pay for it. However, I think it would be much more beneficial for you to become involved in the do-it-yourself maintenance. The more you can do yourself, the more money you'll have in your pocket at the end of the day. Now, for the update. The day after my last post, I decided to bring up the whole water pressure issue again to see if he'd changed his mind, or at least be more willing to discuss it. I mean, I wasn't really expecting much, but I thought it was worth a shot. So, while we were eating scrambled eggs, I casually mentioned it. I figured breakfast is a good time to talk about stuff like this, right? He just shrugged it off again and said it wasn't a big deal. Classic. So, I took a breath and suggested we check the water pressure gauge together. Like, just to confirm everything was fine and see if we could figure out if something was wrong. He was reluctant at first, but he eventually agreed. I think he knew that I wasn't just going to drop it again like he hoped. He just wanted to finish his breakfast first, so we did that and then headed to the basement. When we checked the gauge, he noticed it was lower than usual. I could see his face change a little, and I thought, finally, here's my moment. So I jumped on the opportunity to suggest calling a plumber. But nope, he was not having it. He insisted it might fix itself, especially since the weather forecast was showing rain. So we just dropped the topic for the time being, but I could feel this lingering annoyance from both of us. A week later, we went to a family dinner at his parents' house. They're always so friendly and welcoming, making sure we feel at home. They had this huge spread of food that was just amazing. I love spending time with his family. It usually takes my mind off all the stuff going on between us. During dinner, his dad casually mentioned that they had a plumbing issue last month. My ears perked up at that, and I think my boyfriend noticed because he gave me a look. His dad said he called a plumber, and it turned out to be a simple fix that saved them a lot of trouble. My boyfriend kind of shifted in his seat, and I knew he was feeling uncomfortable about the conversation. Then, when the talk turned to future home improvements, I figured it was the perfect time to suggest getting professional help for our own place. I mean, we were just talking about it, right? But my boyfriend rolled his eyes and dismissed the idea, which made things super awkward at the table. His mom even chimed in to say it's good to ask for help when needed, which I thought was nice. This made my boyfriend argue that he could handle it himself, and I could feel the tension rising again. After dinner, we went outside for some fresh air, and things were quiet between us. The next day, his parents invited us to a weekend barbecue, and we accepted. I was looking forward to it, thinking it would be a good way to lighten the mood. But at the barbecue, his brother brought up home renovations and hiring contractors, and my boyfriend got all defensive again. It was like he was just waiting for someone to ask him about it so he could argue his point. He said he could do everything without spending money, and I just rolled my eyes. A few days later, I found a leak under the kitchen sink. I told my boyfriend about it, and he brushed it off again, saying it wasn't a big deal. At that point, I was done waiting for him to take this seriously, so I called a plumber without telling him. I know it wasn't the best move, but I just needed something done. The plumber arrived the next day while my boyfriend was out running errands. After the repair, my boyfriend came home and noticed the kitchen was clean and dry. He was like, "What happened?" I told him I called a plumber because I couldn't wait any longer, and he just lost it. He accused me of going behind his back and undermining him. We ended up having this heated argument about trust and responsibility in our relationship. I was so over it and just left to have some space. He went into the other room and didn't come out for a while. The next morning, he seemed to have a change of heart and agreed to sit down and talk things through calmly. So, we sat down at the kitchen table, and he said he didn't like how I went behind his back, but understood why I did it. Eventually, we decided to create a list of home repairs and prioritize which ones needed professional help. This way, we could both see what needed to be done and feel like we were working on it together. By the end of the conversation, he even suggested starting with the water pressure issue next week. After all the heavy stuff, we decided to celebrate a little, so we cooked dinner together that night. It felt nice to do something normal and fun together after all the stress. Things are still a bit complicated between us, not just about the plumbing stuff, but with our communication in general. Even though we had a decent conversation and are working on that list together, I still feel like there's some tension lurking under the surface. I kind of wish we could just get on the same page without all this fighting, you know? Anyway, I'll make sure to post an update if anything big happens. Edit. We had a long talk about our communication issues, and he admitted he struggles with being vulnerable. We're working on it. Am I the idiot for walking out on my girlfriend after she invited her best friend to our make-or-break weekend? My girlfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years now. I absolutely love her and believe that she might be the one. I think she feels the same way too. She has a best friend whom she has known since basically she was born. Naturally, my girlfriend has a tendency to share everything with her, even details regarding our relationship. I have no problem with that, and actually feel nice that her best friend is there for her, allowing us to spend time with our friends without either of us getting bored or feeling alone. About a year ago, her best friend actually spilled some details about some of my serious conversations that I had with my girlfriend over text. I told my girlfriend that I do not like her sharing screenshots of our chats where I am being vulnerable. Basically things I would not tell anyone else. She promised me that this would never happen again and that she understood that some things I tell her in confidence are very private. Just yesterday, her best friend again spilled some details like, "Why were you mentally drained?" And I thought, how does she even know this? Obviously, my girlfriend shared screenshots, and I am 1000% sure of it. I asked my girlfriend about this today, and she absolutely swore that she didn't even say a word to her best friend about that conversation. That is, of course, a lie, because the detail in which her best friend was talking to me, well, it's just not possible. It made me feel absolutely horrible and devastated that despite discussing this, she shared information that was very private and that I would not want the world to know about. What hurts even more is the fact that she is now lying about it. If I ask, "Can we take a look at your phone together, just so I can feel at peace?" she will say no. She is never comfortable with me looking at her chats with her best friend, which I mean is fair, but then she also breaks my trust like this. This is my first relationship, and I consider myself lucky to find such a nice girl. But is this a deal breaker? Doesn't everyone have flaws? For me, trust is very important, and I'm in such a place that breaking up seems too hard to do emotionally, while staying just keeps bothering me with the fact that whatever I talk to her about is not private and will be shared. I do not know what to do and would love to know if someone here has faced a similar situation. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Yeah, but it's a deal breaker. Once is a mistake, and you can get over that because you did. But twice, you're going to get to a point where, rightfully, you won't trust her to tell her anything privately again. If you can't share your thoughts or insecurities with your girlfriend and trust that she won't share them with the whole world, then you can't trust her for anything. Comment 2. If you do not want the world to find out, you should never talk about issues unless it's with a counselor. Lying can always be a deal breaker, but what it is being lied about plays into it. Your girlfriend may need to talk about what she sees happening to you and your issues. Now for the update. A few months have passed since I confronted my girlfriend Emily about her friend sharing private info. We tried to work through the trust issues, but it sort of felt like we were just avoiding the main problem. Emily suggested we go on a weekend getaway, thinking it would help us reconnect and strengthen our relationship. So, we booked a cabin in the woods for a quiet retreat. The first night was pretty awkward. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was like we were both avoiding the real issues. I felt like we were just pretending everything was fine. The vibe was off. Emily suddenly suggested inviting her best friend Sarah to join us for the second night. I hesitated for a bit because, Sarah is the reason why we're in this mess in the first place. But I ended up agreeing, thinking maybe having Sarah there would lighten the mood, or at least distract us from the fact that our relationship is in shambles. So, Sarah shows up the next day, and things felt a little more normal. We had dinner together, but then Sarah started bringing up these old stories from Emily's past relationships. Like, come on, I was sitting there feeling left out and irritated, and I could tell Emily was getting lost in the nostalgia too. This was not the time to talk about Emily's exes. After dinner, Sarah got a call and stepped outside to take it. Emily and I decided to play cards, thinking it would help us connect a bit. But then Sarah came back inside, visibly upset. Sarah sat down and revealed that she found out her boyfriend had been unfaithful. I felt bad for her, but honestly, that wasn't what we needed right now. We didn't have the emotional energy for this. Late that night, while Sarah was in the shower, Emily and I tried to talk about our issues, but instead of a heartfelt conversation, it turned into an argument. I brought up how Sarah's oversharing has affected our relationship. Emily accused me of overreacting and not understanding her friendship with Sarah. We were just going in circles, and then Emily said she needed space to think. The next morning, Sarah had already left early because she didn't want to intrude on our time. Honestly, I was relieved. After breakfast, I suggested we go for a hike to clear the air. I figured being in nature would help us talk things through. On the hike, I found this secluded spot with a beautiful view, and I thought, what a perfect place to have a heart-to-heart. But just as we were getting into a deeper discussion about boundaries and trust, guess who shows up? Sarah. Emily was shocked to see her and asked her what she was doing back. Sarah revealed she had a major argument with her boyfriend and needed a place to crash. Emily immediately offered her the guest room, and I just stood there feeling completely blindsided. I knew we weren't going to resolve anything now. I was so frustrated. Like, we were finally going to talk about our issues, and now that's not happening. I made the decision to leave the cabin and drive back home alone. As I was packing my things, Emily pleaded with me to reconsider. She was like, "Can we just talk about this?" But I was just done. I left feeling the weight of the situation on my shoulders. We agreed to meet at a local coffee shop the next day with the intention of clearing the air, but honestly, I was just over it. Edit. During our coffee shop meeting, Emily and I had a long conversation about the state of our relationship. We both agreed that inviting Sarah to the cabin was a mistake and added unnecessary stress. I explained how her friendship with Sarah made me feel unsafe in our relationship, and she admitted that she hadn't realized the extent of what I was feeling. After discussing it, we mutually decided to take a break to reflect on our relationship separately, as we needed time to think about our future. Am I the idiot for refusing to abandon my cat and move back home just to please my controlling mother? I am a 22-year-old female and am moving with my boyfriend, who is a 20-year-old male of 3 years in 3 months. I'm moving 1,000 miles away. I suddenly told her yesterday. She has known for about 6 months that I was looking to move with my boyfriend. When I told her, she said she didn't know it was going to be so sudden, and I apologized. She then went quiet for a while, and then proceeded to say I needed to get all my stuff out before I leave and make sure there is nothing left because it will go in the dump. She then said I needed to get different health insurance. I'm on her insurance. So that is valid, I guess. And that I needed to take my cat back to the Humane Society. I've had my cat for 8 years. My cat is an outdoor cat. I already told her I will send her money for food and take her to the vet if needed when I visit. Around every 6 months is the planned visits. I asked her why she wouldn't be okay with keeping my cat, as this is what she is used to, and she said she doesn't want a cat. My cat is even closer to my mom than to me. I realize she doesn't have to keep my cat, that she is my responsibility, which is why I will be taking her with me. But I am still worried the move and car ride will be extremely stressful for my kitty, as she is 13. I am afraid she will miss her cat sister and my mom. The point is, now my mom will barely even talk to me, and she is telling me to remove everything of mine when I leave, or she will put it in the trash. This makes me sad. This is supposed to be exciting, but instead, I feel guilty. I realize she is having a hard time letting go, but it has reached a point where she is acting hateful towards me and then pretending I don't exist. This is common with my mom whenever I want to change something in my life. I talked about moving to college dorms a few years ago, and she had the same response and even started to guilt trip me, saying there was no reason to keep going on. I end up backing out of every new experience because my mom talks me out of it by saying that all this stuff will go wrong, and then if that doesn't work, she guilt trips me. I love my mom, but I really don't understand this behavior, and it hurts me. Experiences that are supposed to be exciting instead have me feeling guilty and anxious, mostly because I'm thinking of how my mother feels and what she says to me. If I try to share my feelings with her, she just says, "How do you want me to act? What about how I feel? You hurt my feelings too." I almost forgot. Please offer your advice. I told my mom I'm moving in 3 months. She said remove all my stuff before I leave, or it's going in the dump. She said to take my cat of 8 years back to the Humane Society. I'm taking my cat with me instead. My mom now barely talks to me and acts passive-aggressively. Every time I try to progress in life, she gets mad and then tells me everything that's wrong with it. If that doesn't work, she guilt trips me. It hurts me. She says it hurts her more. How do I deal with this? How do I interact with her? What would you do if your parents acted this way towards you? I feel confused every time this happens. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Some parents don't know how to let go and get super controlling over it. I am sorry she is behaving like this, that she is threatening you with throwing stuff away or giving away your cat and the like. Move. Get settled into your new life and routine. Then tackle figuring out how she will fit into your new life. Also, look into ways to calm your cat down during a car ride. They make calming collars, or you may need medication from the vet. Having an outdoor cat is risky enough, but a new and unfamiliar neighborhood may get her injured or worse. So start figuring out how to retrain her to be an indoor cat. Comment 2. Then tackle figuring out how she will fit into your new life. This is definitely an eye-opener for me, because my life has always been centered around my mom. Yes, thank you for the recommendations for my kitty. I am actually planning a vet visit soon to make sure she is in good enough health to travel. I will ask my vet about calming medication. I will try to retrain her again. Now, for the update. Almost a month has passed since I told my mom about the move. My boyfriend Mark and I have been packing my stuff, and the apartment looks like an episode of Hoarders. My mom hasn't helped with anything. No packing, no cleaning, nothing. She just sits there, making comments that really hurt. Sometimes, I have to remind myself that I'm not a teenager anymore. I don't have to sit there and smile when she takes her shots. Just because she gave birth to me doesn't mean I have to take it. But it's kinda hard to stand up for myself when I'm questioning my decisions. It's not like this is the first time she's been like this. Whenever I try to change my life, she acts like I'm trying to ruin it. It's like her love comes with strings attached, and if I don't follow the rules, she's gonna pull them hard. After weeks of this, Mark suggested that we have a family dinner. I wasn't too keen on the idea, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I just needed to get through the move, and then I could be free. We decided to have the dinner at my apartment. I invited my mom over, hoping that we could at least have a civil conversation. She showed up late, of course, arms crossed like she was going to a jail visit. She barely acknowledged Mark, who had cooked this amazing meal. I could tell he was trying to impress her, but she was having none of it. During dinner, she took every opportunity to throw shade at me, Like, she made comments about my choice of decor. She never liked the way I decorated my place. I mean, I can't keep my walls beige just because she likes beige. I tried to change the subject to Mark's recent promotion, hoping to get her to shut up for a second. But she interrupted me and asked if Mark was going to support me financially. Really? This again? Mark just laughed it off, trying to lighten the mood, but you could feel the tension creeping in. After dinner, she said she wanted to help with packing. I was kind of surprised she'd even offered to help, so I said yes. We went into the living room, and she started going through some boxes. She found a box of my childhood toys, and for a second, it seemed like we were bonding. She started reminiscing about my childhood, but then she started talking about how hard it would be for her when I left. Like, yes, she's gonna have to find a new hobby. This is the part that really got me. She dismissed all my plans and said it was so selfish of me to leave her. I couldn't take it anymore, so I told her I was going to take a break in the living room. I just needed to breathe. I left her and Mark in the kitchen, and I heard them talking. Mark was trying to calm her down, and she kept saying that she was looking for a way to convince me to stay. I didn't want to hear any more of that, so I walked in and confronted her. I told her I knew what she was trying to do. She started yelling at me, saying that I was abandoning her. I yelled back, saying I needed to live my life and that it was about time I did something for myself. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard I thought it would come off the hinges. It was a relief, to be honest. Mark suggested we take a trip to clear our heads. I couldn't think of a better idea, so we planned a weekend getaway to the beach. We needed the relaxation. A week later, during our trip, I got a call from my mom. I didn't want to answer, but I felt obligated. She was upset and started saying she was worried about the cat's health. I assured her that the cat was fine and would be with me. Then she had the nerve to bring up the idea of me moving back home. I shut that down real quick and said I was going through with the move. The call ended with her yelling about how I was abandoning her. After that, I focused on packing and getting ready for the move. I was so close to the finish line, I could smell it. A few days before the move, my mom showed up unexpectedly at the apartment. I was shocked, to say the least. She brought a small gift for the cat, trying to make amends. I accepted the gift, but made it clear that I was leaving as planned. She didn't say much and just left. It felt like a small step forward, but I know I still have a long way to go. Edit. This situation has been a long time coming. I have spoken to my mom about her behavior in the past, but she always acts like a victim, making it difficult to have a mature discussion. I understand if my friends don't want to hear about this anymore, as it feels like a cycle. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.